Hello and welcome to the Tank Club. Today I am going to show you a guide on how to tank Aetherian Archive on Veteran and on Hard Mode as a solo tank. This is going to be possible for people no matter what sort of level of experience you are at. There's a few different ways to set up for this trial, and it's going to be very different depending on your experience as a tank. So generally speaking, you can play the majority of this trial as a hybrid tank. So during the video, you're going to see me playing as a kind of damage dealer support role. And the reason for that is because the bosses hit so little that you aren't actually required to be a tank. You can tank this with sort of 35k health and a damage setup. So I'm using medium armor the entire trial, including on the last boss. You don't have to set up like that. That is just the way I prefer to play it. So I'm going to be using powerful assault on the body. And then I'm using Yolnakrin on the jewelry and the weapons. For the monster set, I am using Encratis. And the way that I'm going to play this build, the most important thing is the last boss. So when we get to the last boss, I do switch to a tank. You do kind of require to be a tank for the last boss because you want to be able to maintain all of your different buffs and debuffs. You don't want to take too much damage if you've got 3-4 axes, you've got some action arcs, depending on your group's DPS. Obviously, you want to be able to defend yourself against those. Now, the most important thing for this trial is to make sure that you use infused jewelry for the last boss. And you want to use potion boost jewelry, not potion cooldown. You want potion boost. What you're going to do is you're going to combine the potion boost infused jewelry alongside some immovable potions. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you 33 seconds of immovable. What that means is you can't be stunned or immobilized for 33 seconds out of every 45 seconds. So you can drink a potion every 45 seconds. So what you're going to see throughout the last boss fight is you're going to see me tanking the axes unblocked. I'm taking heavy attacks, I'm not being stunned, and I'm not going to lose the axes because I'm using immovable potions. I'm using that infused potion boost jewelry, and the jewelry also gives me the option to make sure that I don't get knocked back by the ads. So when the ads drop, when the reflections drop onto you, they will knock you back. Now, even if you're blocking, that happens. So the only way to avoid that is to step out of the AoE or to use my jewelry setup with the infused potion boost along with those immovable potions. A lot of groups for hard mode will ask you to bring a main tank and an off tank. The off tank will taunt the axes and go and stand on the rock. We will not be doing that in this fight. You actually make this trial more difficult by having somebody standing out on the rock. A number of reasons for that. It's difficult to gain synergies out on the rock. You're not providing any group buffs on the rock. You're getting less healing on the rock. If you stand next to the main boss and you taunt the axes there, you won't lose aggro. As long as you taunt the axes when they spawn in, as long as you focus your taunt on the main boss, you'll never lose aggro of the axes. The most important thing in this trial is not being stunned. We're going to go through this trial from the start. We're going to go over everything. So let's make a start. So you ideally want somebody to be running a speed boost for this portion of the fight. As a solo tank, you could do it. For your group, having a Nightblade with Refreshing Path is usually the best option. If you are the tank and you're using a speed boost, it can be a little bit tricky. So for the first ad pull, to really speed this up, if you can be ahead of your group, you want to run and you want to do some damage, throw down some kind of AoE skill to cause a soft aggro, run and open the door. You get your group to stand in front of the door, the ads will automatically stack really quickly. This is much faster than chaining in the ads. And then once they're quickly stacked, you go into the pull and you will debuff all of the ads. So this is the quickest way to pick up this stack. You just run, stand in front of that door, they will auto stack. If they're already stragglers at this point, you just chain them in. But obviously, it's a good reason to do this as well is for your sustain. So obviously, if you're not on a Dragon Knight, you're going to be using Silver Leash, which means using stamina, which means you can sprint less. We run through the corridor here where you can get obviously frozen and immobilized. And then when we get to the door, we have got the 2 action arcs. Now, obviously on this bit, taunt them, try and pull them a little bit to the side so they stack together nicely. If you just run in and taunt the one on the left, one on the right, they won't really stack. So you try and taunt them both and then go and stand kind of off to the side a little bit to pull them closer together. And then your group can kind of cleave them down where they're real close and compact. Then we move on to the next ad pull. So a lot of groups, people will go and stand in the light, just run past the light, open the door, and that's you don't need to stand and wait in the light. This trial was designed for 160 CP on the old CP system, so obviously nowadays the damage that you take in this trial is extremely low, incredibly low, especially for high champion point level players. Okay, as we go into this ad pull, the two things you need to focus is there are two chain spinners. There's one on the left side and one at the back. They should be taunted. There is two overchargers that need to be focused by your group. You stack the chain spinners on top of the overchargers. Now your group should not be moving out of the group with the big lightning AoE. They do need to move out with the core lightning. So the little lightning AoEs that chase after somebody, they chase after one person, they need to be taken away from the group or kited around the edge of the group, but still within range of the healers. The big lightning AoEs should be kept in because they do very little damage. So your healers are in the group, the AoEs are in the group, that's fine. The little core lightning that chases after somebody, that's the one that hurts, that's the one that needs taken out. If you can kill these fast enough, then you won't have any core lightning or any lightning AoEs to worry about. But yeah, you have to pick off the taunt really quick of the two chain spinners. So there's one just on the left there. There's one at the back that runs in from behind. And you just bring them in to the stack. Your group should just run through and just damage the overchargers as fast as possible. You stack and debuff everything as quickly as you can. If there's any little ads, chain those in if you can see them. And then it's on to the first boss. So this first boss does extremely low damage. You don't have to block one time, not once, on this fight as a tank. You can just simply tank the boss as a damage dealer. You can do whatever you need to do. You want to try and hold the boss kind of where it is. And then for this fight, generally, we have a number of call-outs. So various groups will call it differently, but you're going to have some lights that you need to go and stand in. So the boss is going to stand with his hands in the air. He's going to start pulsing lightning damage, and you have to go and stand in the little safety circle that's glowing around the room. We usually call these left when it's just on the left side. We've got top right and bottom right. We've got bridge, which is on the exit side, or you could call that exit. And then you've got entrance or back to the start for the other one. So there's 5 different places you can stand. Now, certain tank builds can actually stand there and avoid having to go and stand in the lightning. So things like a sorcerer tank, if you are using Bound Aegis and your Clan Fear, you don't need to move. You can just completely tank the damage and just stand there and avoid moving altogether. You want to make sure, obviously, the boss is turned around from your group so that they can get the benefits of their backstabber. But yeah, this is literally a very, very basic fight. You have got to move fast, though. As soon as you see the boss with his hands in the air, you do want to start moving. The boss will sometimes take a little while to come down, so you can start damaging it. You can see we've already damaged the boss before it's even dropped from the sky. This is a common thing it's been like this for a very long time now. So the boss has very little mechanics. He doesn't have a heavy attack. He just light attacks for quite low amounts of damage. As you can see, it's hitting for 10k, but because we've got 2 healers and we're all stood very compact, it's unnoticeable. I'm not blocking. I'm just completely doing a various rotation of skills, trying to keep up my buffs, my debuffs, and a bit of damage. This is the big hit here. That hits for 7k. So there's a big AoE that hits for 7k. It's not really that big damage. And then here comes the main mechanic. So the hands go in the air. Here comes the pulse of lightning. You look around the room. There's the golden light. You just run to it as fast as you can, and you stand in it. While in there, you want to try and recast all of your range-based skills. So any skills that you've got that are range-based, you need to recast those now. As you run in, you leave the light before everybody else. So after a couple of seconds, you want to leave the light and run back to the boss to hold it in position. You don't want the position to move. You get the explosion again, there we go, and your group need to move back behind the boss. Now, the reason why you want to kind of stand like this is, as a tank, you can see half of the room for the different lights, the safety areas, and your group can see the other. So it makes it nice and easy. So if it's behind the group, you can call it. If it's onto the left or the bottom right, you can call it. If it's behind you as the tank, somebody in your group can call bridge or top right, and there's enough cover of people that can see where to go. Here comes the thing again. So we have to look around for the light, and it's behind me. and we run, and we're refreshing skills here and refreshing buffs from range. After about 4 seconds of being stood in the light, you want to leave before everybody else. So the boss is still doing the mechanic, but you want to have moved out of it before he drops his arms down. So there we go, the boss has dropped his arms down. He usually does the explosion straight after the big AoE, but as you can see, that only does 7.5k damage to us as a tank, or sorry, a hybrid DD. It's doing 10k from the light attacks and 7k from the AoE. So it's not really very impactful. We can just carry on doing our damage rotation. And this is pretty much all of the mechanics. There isn't really anything else that's going to happen here. It's just the same mechanics repeated over and over again. For the next phase of this fight, ideally, you want to go into the middle as a tank. So you'll have a healer and damage dealers on the right side because there's an overcharger and that needs to be killed fast. On the left side, there's just a few different ads that need to die as well. And then in the middle, there is a constant resetting of ads. Now, at this point, if everybody goes into sneak and then step onto the pad in sneak, when you get teleported into the next room, you can hold backwards. You can hold to start walking backwards while you're in the load screen, and then you don't have to keep killing these ads. So every time you kill these ads in the middle, they'll just keep respawning. So the best way to do this, if your whole group runs through the ads, you can kind of get ready. So as you can see, there's all pads around the edge of the room. Ideally, the people who run down from the left are going to go to the left pads because that's where they're closest to. The people on the right go to the right pads because that's the ones they're closest to. And then if you're the tank in the middle, bring the ads to the middle 4 pads, and then your group can start damaging them from near the pads so that you're ready to step on them when everybody's done. Now, these ads will stop respawning when the left and the right side have completed their ads. There will be, the floor will appear, so at the minute there's no floor to the left and the right side. They will drop down into place once that side is completed, and then the ads will stop respawning. So they're just endlessly respawning. You don't get any experience for killing them either, so you're not even getting any benefits from XP. But yeah, the best thing to do here, usually there won't be a healer in the middle, so it's a good idea to have some kind of self-heal. As you can see on this build, I'm using a warden, so I'm able to heal my group a little bit when they're taking damage from these ads, because it is kind of difficult to keep retaunting them. As you can see there, the left side DDs are running down the ramp. The right side is going to run down as well in a second. As you can, the pads have lit up, so now it's time to step on the pads. So the 4 people in the middle standing on the 4 middle pads. It's pretty self-explanatory. If everybody stood on the pads, they should be stood in the middle. If you don't get ported through, make everyone jump. That'll activate and re-trigger the pads. And then we move forward onto the next set of ads. So we wait for the ground to drop down. There it is. And you need to be careful here not to fall off the side with your mount. If you're going to mount up, you can just run. Wait for the floor to go. You can't move while the floor is coming into place. And then you want everybody here to stack on the rock. Your healers should have ground AoE heals down, so nobody has to move out of the stack at any point. The main priority here is to chain in all the little stragglers. Your group should be focusing the overcharges and the nullifiers, and bashing the nullifiers. As a tank, you need to taunt the chain spinners. There's 2 chain spinners. Now, just remember, for this phase, though, the 2 chain spinners that spawn into this ad pull will constantly keep coming in and constantly keep getting respawned until all of the other ads are dead. So it's not a priority to focus the chain spinners, because they'll just keep respawning until all of the overcharges and nullifiers have been killed. So make sure your group don't focus the chain spinners. They need to focus the other ads first, because the chain spinners will endlessly respawn into the room until you have finished killing those other ads. You just stack everything together. Everything spawns pretty much in this little circle. The nullifiers will instantly do like a heal, so you want to just get ready to bash that towards your group. So I always stand on the outer edge and bash it inwards so that it's closer. You don't want to bash it outwards away from the group, because you want things to be stacked close together. And it takes far too long to actually taunt this nullifier and then run across the room to line of sight stack it. It's easier just to bash it towards the group so that everything is a little bit closer. Once these are dead, you go onto the pads. If you go and stand at the front one, you can see there's the mage. There's a shadow version of the mage, an illusion. You can't step onto that middle pad until that has disappeared. So you have to wait. As you can see there, if somebody falls off, you can just jump here if you want to make this a little bit faster. So you can wait. If somebody disconnects or something, you can jump off the side. The easiest way to do this is to sprint on your mount. You don't need to jump, you just run straight off on your mount. If you've got 12 people, though, just obviously port down. That is the safer way of doing it. So if you just sprint off the edge, straight down the middle, you will easily clear the entire jump, and then we're on to the next fight. Now for this fight, the most important thing is to try and hold the boss pretty still. You don't need to move out of the AoEs, you don't need to move out of anything. There's going to be adds that spawn in, you don't need to stack them, you don't need to kill them. You just need to go for a full attack on the boss. And let's make a start on this fight. So this is the second boss. You do want to pull it a bit towards you a little bit because you want the group to be able to go behind the boss. And again, we're running a damage tank build here, but you don't have to do that. You can run a normal tank build. So we're keeping the boss nice and still. Our group should be stacked on us at this point, so the backstabber is not that useful. And the boss will slam the floor. And when you get to 75%, your group needs to spread out. The boss is going to throw rocks. So we're going to be pushing to 75. When your group spread out, the easiest way to spread out is to circle around the boss. A lot of groups go backwards away from the boss. But in the current meta where a lot of melee is preferred and people are playing a lot of Dragon Knights and things like that, you can go behind the boss. You can go on the legs. You can surround the boss. You don't need to go backwards away from the group. It's actually probably easier for your healers if everybody stays nice and compact. So as you can see, there's a number of adds in the room. They don't really do a lot of damage. They only start to hurt when people are taking lots of different damage. And if you're close together with other people, you're going to get hit by more rock damage. So as you can see here, we're all stacked up again, and the boss is going to slam the floor. So you can tell by the animation of the boss what mechanic is going to happen. So the boss is slamming the ground here. It kind of spreads itself out and hits the ground with its head. And then once it kind of curls up, you know it's going to be time to spread out and it's going to start throwing rocks. And then when it opens itself up again, that's when it's time to restack. So here we go. There we go. It closes itself up and we spread out. We surround the boss. Everyone's doing damage. And then once the boss reopens itself, we have to stank back up on the tank. There are like AoEs on the floor here, big AoEs. Now you don't need to move out of those, you can just stand right in them. It's not going to do anything. They're not really doing that much damage, like it's 2,000 damage. Your group can afford to stack on you because you're going to have two healers with heals over the group and everyone restacks and then the boss goes down. Now on the next ad pull, as a tank you can go on the right side because there are imps that need to be chained in. You could just use a mag DK to chain them in, or anybody who's got a chain, any damage dealer could use Silver Leash. So you can do that, but you don't need to. Now, when you do the middle adds, so as you can see here, I'm going to be tanking the middle adds. On this occasion, they don't keep respawning unless you kill them. So if you leave one ad alive in the middle, they will not keep resetting. So the best thing to do is to leave one alive, get your group to focus them down, kill all the adds, and then just leave one of them alive. And then you don't have to keep killing them. Once the right and the left side have both completed, that's when you want to be able to kill the last one in the middle. If people have got pets, they can just control their pets by using the command to stop their pet from attacking the adds. So you just bring in the adds and you kill them. Once the left and the right side are done, you progress forward, the bridge will drop down, and then it's time to go for the next boss. So with this fight, the boss will spawn on a bit of a delay. You just want to get on of it as soon as you can. Your group can just stack up here. They just need to be careful of the AoEs on the floor, the little AoEs that are very difficult to see. So if you've got like pink AoEs, it's hard to see it on this floor. The floor's very bright, as you can see there. It's kind of hard. Even with RGB AoE, it's quite difficult. But yeah, you want to turn the boss away. You want to keep taunt of it. It doesn't really do anything. Again, this is another boss. Doesn't really have many mechanics. It throws damage at you. Throws like magic at you. And it's hitting us quite hard, really. 16k as a damage dealer unblocked. But with our 38k health, it's not a problem. And we just go through our skills and rotation. Your group should stack pretty close. Once the boss splits, it's time to kill the ads. So some damage dealers should go and kill the ads. You can leave one alive if your group would like to. Usually you'd want to leave the exit one alive. And that way you can spend more time damaging the boss. It's also a good idea sometimes, especially if you've got a lower damage group, to kind of time your ultimates. So you could have people drop in their Destro ults on the boss just as the ads are about to spawn. And that way you can do a lot of damage as the ads are spawning out and they're running through all of your ultimates. So you can time that. And you just damage the boss. The main thing you're watching out for here is not to get hit by the AoEs. If you stand inside the AoEs and get hit, every time you get hit by another AoE, it does more damage. And group members can easily die to those. You also want to make sure you keep taunt, because damage dealers will get hurt when the boss throws the light attack at people, because it's going to hurt people who are not using any heavy or don't have as much resistances as we have. And it's just rinse and repeat. So you just keep damaging the boss. There are no more mechanics. If you do have any ads alive when the boss has finished that portion of the fight, so when the ads spawn in, you've got a limited time to kill them. If there's any alive, the boss will explode and do damage. Now, you can usually survive one ad being alive. When it gets to 2, it gets a bit more risky. At 3, you're definitely going to die. Or at least your group will. So you need to make sure enough ads get killed during those split phases, because you do only have a limited time to do that. And for these fights, the most important thing is just trying to maintain your buffs and debuffs. I'm trying to maintain everything here. That is my main focus. I'm trying to keep up Powerful Assault. I'm trying to keep up Encratis. I'm trying to keep up Crusher. Those are the most important things for me here, because there is very little requirement for me to actually maintain anything else. Like, I don't really have to worry about mechanics. I don't really have to block. I'm just entirely focused on uptimes. And then this is where you want to switch over now. So this is where your infused potion boost jewelry is going to be useful. And you want to switch to your removable potions, because now this is going to be the last boss fight. Now, we are going to do hard mode on this occasion, but it's not going to make any difference whether it's hard mode or not for the tank. The only difference is going to be you're going to need a range taunt for the ads on hard mode. Now, if you are a newer tank, you might want to front bar both your range taunt and your melee taunt. And it can also be a good idea to maintain use of the range taunt, because it's obviously going to cost magicka, and you're going to be able to generate magicka while blocking. So that is one thing that you can consider. Have both taunts on your front bar to make it easy, so you don't have to worry about bar swapping and potentially getting stunned by the axes. That's a thing to consider depending on your experience level. So to activate hard mode, you need to smash the 3 orbs, and then when we stand on the pads, we're going to get pulled through into the next room. For hard mode, it kind of starts straight away, so you're going to start getting AoEs splashing around the room that you need to block. That will be one of the differences of hard mode. One of the other differences for hard mode is the Storm Atronachs. Now, to start off the ad pulls, the easiest way to stack everything is to taunt everything on the left side. So everything. You've got a chain spinner, you've got a nullifier, you've got an overcharger. You then taunt the chain spinner on the right side as well, and the Storm Atronach, and then you want to run to the ledge to stack them. So we're going to do that here. Somebody needs to bash the nullifier. If nobody bashes the nullifier, it won't move and you won't be able to stack it. So we just start from left to right. 1 taunt, 2 taunts, 3 taunts. You can afford to leave the Storm Atronach when it spawns in. You don't have to taunt it straight away. It doesn't do that much damage. Your group members are going to be able to survive if it runs onto them. I've got taunt of it here. And then we're kind of running onto the edge of the ground here to make sure everything's stacked. And then once it's stacked, we're running the other ads on top of those. So bringing everything back in once the ranged ads are stacked, and then your group damages all of those. The Storm Atronach doesn't need to be focused until it's doing its execute, where it puts its hands in the air, and it has the same mechanic as the first boss, where it starts doing lots and lots of lightning damage, so it starts to explode, and that's when it needs to be focused. Once those hands are dead, you go back to the entrance, so you go back to the rock on the entrance, and there's going to be an overcharger that spawns. Your group want to try and kill this as fast as possible. If you've got a Storm Atronach, you take that there as well, so your group can start laying down some AoE damage. And then on this next ad pull, you're going to get 2 chain spinners again. One that spawns right next to you on your right, and one that spawns behind you. So you pick those up. Taunt the chain spinners first. There's the first one, and there's the second one. And then you want to taunt the left overcharger. You want to taunt the right overcharger. And then you do the similar thing again, where you run over to the ledge. The imps can get in the way. You just need to try and pick off the taunts if you can. You run to the same ledge as you did the first time and stack the overchargers so your group can kill them easier. If the chain spinners start doing their mechanic, it just needs to be blocked. It's a good idea to core block. When they chain somebody in, they're then going to do an AoE immediately after. So that's the thing to look out for. Once all the ads are dead, the boss is going to start spawning into the room. So it's a good idea sometimes, if you want to be able to organize your group, then you should leave one of the imps out of group. Otherwise, keep it in. Once you're on to your last few ads, bring them into the middle of the room where the boss is going to spawn, so that everybody can start planning their positioning for the main boss. So as you can see, there's an impact to the side there. We're going to pull that in now. And the main boss is going to spawn here in the middle, or it's going to fly down off the side. It's actually already spawned. It's up on the rock opposite where we are now, and it's going to fly over and land. So we keep this Storm Atronach taunted. My group are going to stack behind the boss. You should never allow the boss to look at the group. That's going to cause chain lightning. You do not want that to happen. So the boss needs to be taunted at all times. If you maintain taunt on the boss, the axes will not lose aggro. So here comes a Storm Atronach. I'm taunting those when I can, but they're not absolutely essential. I am taunting the Storm Atronachs. Now after a little bit, the first axes are going to spawn in. So 2 axes will spawn in at the start. It's always a good idea to call block when the axes spawn in. They always spawn in the same place. One on the left, one on the right. There they are. So I always taunt that one. Call block if you're slow at taunting, so that your group, if your group are blocking, they're not going to get killed by those axes. And now, we've taunted both of the axes. We do not need to taunt those axes ever again. All we need to do now is keep taunt of the main boss, and the axes will not lose aggro. So the important thing here is to maintain your stamina. You need to be watching your stamina. You need to be using your removable potions with the jewelry set we've got, and then you don't need to block the slams, but you can block the slams. You only need to block the heavy attacks from the axes. The light attacks don't need to be blocked, so you can preserve some stamina that way by dropping your block and only blocking those heavy attacks. So when the axes go for a big overhead swing, that's what you're looking out for. So we're just stacking everything. The reason we're stacking everything on the boss is so we get more healing, we get synergies, we've got better sustain, we're able to buff our group, we're able to provide group benefits. It's safer doing it this way than going out on the rock. If you go out on the rock, that means there's a healer out of group. When it reaches a certain point, another axe is going to spawn in. So you've got 3 axes. Now, in most cases, you can manage just having 3 axes. And there won't usually be too many more. Unless your group damage is really, really low, you might get a 4th or 5th axe. Now, the important thing here again is if the axes go in front of your character, which may happen sometimes, is you just step away from the boss to make the axes go through your character, and then you can reposition yourself. So you take a few steps back and then do that. You want to try and stand still because you can cause chain lightning to your group, especially when there are reflections in the room, and if the boss is turning at all, like the boss has turned around there, we're lucky it didn't do anything. But when the boss is facing the group, it will kill people. So as you can see here, I'm struggling to get taunt of the boss. So I've moved away from the boss to make the axes go behind me, and now I'm pushing close to the boss again. I'm only trying to keep taunt of the mage. When the Atronach spawn in, you do want to pick off the taunt if you can, but like I say, it's not absolutely vital. The AoEs, when they drop down from the ground, they need to be blocked. And as you can see, there's some AoEs there with a little purple circle in the middle. You want to avoid standing in those because they will explode unless you've got your immovable active. So I am using immovable potions on cooldown, and those are stopping me from being stunned. I've got this whole portion of time where I don't have to worry about anything. If you're going to turn the boss towards the group to taunt the Storm Atronachs, then it's not worth doing it. Just leave them. Your group can cope. When there's 2 healers healing the group, that's the only... like, there's no problem if you lose aggro of the Storm Atronachs. The only time the Storm Atronachs are a problem is if you've got multiple stacks of your group and they're stood away from the middle and they're not getting enough healing, then obviously you need to keep taunt. You need to taunt those and bring them in. The mage has a peripheral vision of 180 degrees, so you need to make sure that there's nobody stood the 180 degrees in front of the boss. They have to be the 180 degrees behind, because the boss can see people to its left and right peripherals. So just make sure that it's always turned away. Now, as you might have noticed here, I haven't taunted a single axe. What the AoEs that you need to look out for, so the splashing AoEs, if you're doing non-hard mode, it's easier to see, so when you see a big AoE spreading along the floor, you need to move out of it, or make sure you cast an immovable potion, because that is the reflection. It's going to knock you back. If a reflection drops down on top of you, it is going to knock you back. The most important thing for this fight is your stam sustain. Once the boss starts hitting the ground, it's going to hit the ground a few times, the axes will disappear. Now it's time to just maintain taunt and buffing your group. Those are the main focuses. If your group's got low damage, they will definitely want to focus the reflections and get rid of those, because the reflections are increasing the amount of damage you're taking through the execute phase. But during execute, you can't really do anything about what the boss is doing. The boss just stands there with its hands in the air, and all you can do is really taunt the boss, debuff the boss, and buff your group. And then that is it, really. No more axes will spawn during execute. This is pretty much it. And you just kill the boss. If you are a newer tank to this kind of situation, the jewelry setup is going to help you. It's like a cheat code for VEA. If that is not enough, then just run the Engine Guardian monster set. The most important thing is to make sure you're tanking those axes on the boss. There's no reason not to do it. There's absolutely no reason at all to tank those axes anywhere but on the boss. If you do that, you're making this much more difficult. I've seen some groups that like to use a main tank and an off tank, where the off tank takes the axes. I don't really know what the point is in having 2 tanks if that's the case, especially for non-hard mode. So just take the axes on the boss and just keep taunting the boss the whole time. That is how you do the fight. It's not that difficult. With a little bit of practice, you just need to practice sustain. If you are pretty good at sustaining already, then you should be having no trouble at all getting through this trial. It's quite a simple one to do. Just use the little tips that I've showed you here. And I wish you all the best with tanking Aetherian Archive and the hard mode. Thank you very much for watching this tank guide. If you need any more information, make sure you check out the VEA tank builds over on thetankclub.com. If you've got any questions, you can pop those over in the Tank Club Discord. And if you need any advice or anything like that, you can find me on Twitch and various other platforms. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.